Today on this Intuitive Public TV, we are engaging in a very exciting adventure. We are reactivating our video broadcasting live in one of our definitions of the word live, one of our several definitions of the word live we are engaging in now. Thea Fast, dear colleague of mine, and I am Megan Elizabeth Morris. And we have been working for some time. It's been a while now. We've been working with a platform being developed in the Intuitive Network called Intuitive Prowess. And Thea and I have been doing development work in regards to what a number of different groups are doing with the topics that Intuitive Prowess is centering. And I had a series of really interesting experiences today and leading up to today. And what I wanted to do most in my body was talk to Thea about it and broadcast it at the same time. So I suddenly, after coming in from out in the snow, I suddenly reached out to Thea and said, no is completely acceptable, but in case it's a yes, would you like to spontaneously live stream with me? And so we're not quite on a live stream. We had some tech issues, but this is live. um, thank you, Thea, for being on this adventure with me.
Oh, I'm so happy to receive this invitation, Megan. And I'm so happy to be in your presence on Zoom.
It's been a while
And
since we could do
I'm,
this.
yeah, I'm thrilled by the topic and and um, flattered by the ask. It's a different uh, place to sit financially with your regard for me. My regard is less high in some ways. So it's a real treat to experience this aspect of me in your presence and embrace it.
That
It
makes me,
challenges my negative stories, negative self-judgment in a
I,
really great way.
I've, um, I feel a lot of the kinds of things you're saying for me from my side of things. We've been discussing a lot the intuitive economic, the intuitive somatic economic, all being very interrelated with somatic sensing and the awareness of what the body really wants and needs, and how we can only have real relationships or make true decisions by knowing that first. And there's a particular subject that I want to bring in, and I know we have a limited amount of time, so I'm watching the clock also.
Let me interject though.
Please.
We've talked about presencing like a somatic, and I need to ground right now. I
Mhm.
need to settle in, and I'd invite you to join me. Well, I do, or not, whatever your preference is. So I want you to do 3 breaths with really I want to do 3 breaths with really relaxing on the out breath. So on the in breath, I'm going to feel the pull of the tension upward. And on the out breath, I'm just going to watch the relax. And do that again. Third time. And now open your eyes and gaze forward and pick a focal point. And then bring in your peripheral vision. Go into see how clock your peripheral vision. And then see if you can, from there, just relax and see if you can let the field blend. So everything is equally important as everything else. Still gazing in the same direction. Soft eyes and open. And now close your eyes again. And take that bright white pearl of your mind. Let it drop down your neck into the warm, open hands of your heart. And then fire the whole thing up with your life force energy, the energy in your sex. Welcome a feeling of arousal. You're just putting the mat out for the cat. You don't get to decide whether it comes or not. And breathe. And back to you.
Good place to be in. Ooh. Thank you.
I am feeling stimulated.
So we have about 11, 12 minutes where I would like to bring in some parts of previous conversations we've had about a particular kind of bridge, a particular kind of bridging that many people don't even know how to start even thinking about. And I'll try to say as succinctly as I can. There is having one's needs fully, completely met, or at least complete enough to really to sink down into it and be like, I feel safe, or at least I can practice deepening safety. When I need to reach for something, I can generally reach what I absolutely need: food, water, ability to solve an emergency with money, with these different things. There is that. And there is people who are experiencing or have experienced very severe resource scarcity, where the body, because of ongoing deprivation, ongoing violence, malnourishment, many things we could say, it makes it radically more difficult for the body to choose to deepen into safety, because the experience is that it's not safe. And even if someone is not under physical threat, as in physical direct violence, there is a very real violence that is physical, that the body experiences. And so our groups working with Intuitive Prowess and ESO EXP and a number of other groups in the network, we've been looking for a long time at how do we help bridge communications from these two kinds of experiences, because the full safe group really needs what the unsafe group has in terms of knowledge of how certain things are happening and what approaches most preserve life, most restore safety. And the unsafe group is typically cut off from economic access, economic participation. And so those two groups often cannot talk to one another at all. And so from this past decade of my experiences at the intersections of that great severity, where very gradually, with the help of others, and particularly with Thea's help in this past few years, for me to start to restore my ability to ground and communicate when from that place, from that experience of extreme physical violence, the body doesn't know how to do it. And so we have to restore it in some way. We have to communicate with one another in some way. And what I want to be sharing about more and more in our public media is the work that Thea and I have been doing in terms of how you build this bridge, how people on each side of that bridge can move toward comportment that serves connections and relationship building. The people in the least safe conditions need to be able to communicate in ways that do not threaten the safety and stability of the people who have more safety and stability. The people with more safety and stability want to understand what's going on there, but have to protect their safety and stability. And this is something that gets lost for survivors groups who are dealing with intensity. They bring the intensity and the cortisol goes up, and then the people who really want to help them can't help them because they're communicating with such intensity that it essentially disables the otherwise seeming to be able-bodied people who want to be working at the level of real solutions and real relationships and building beautiful, sustaining structures that make everyone's lives better. So I wanted to bring us there, Thea, even in this short amount of time that we've had, because you have helped me so much. And I have been able to anchor certain parts of this so much better than I mean, I've been working on it and working on it. We get a little piece in place and a little piece in place. But the work that you and I have done together has been monumental in this. So even just, we have about 7 minutes left.
No, we have more. Like I want to say that I wanted to give us half an hour from when we started, and I can still do that. So let's go till 10:45.
Okay, 10, 11, 12, 45. Okay, in my brain, 45. Now I'm watching
35 more minutes.
40.
I'll clock it, or
Okay,
I'll set a timer.
right. I think
Yeah.
that's 25 more minutes. So our clocks
Yeah.
would be different.
That's good. Yeah. Okay, I want to start with, I took notes, that's why I was looking away, but I want to start with the intensity, right? And this is a new thought for me. This is, I was just kind of thinking it while you were talking, it was coming to me that when we're dealing with life and death intensity, there's a level of response that's appropriate, right?
Yeah.
I'm reminded of when my mom was dying, that the family leapt to the deathbed, flew in from all over the country, had all the kids looked after, 3 or 4 times before she actually died. And right, so by the time she died, we were worn out and we were ready for it to be over. Right? So that was too long a time to hold that intensity. Right? Mm-hmm. Like I feel compelled repetitively to leap into action around death events of beloveds, right? So there's that level of intensity. And when we're dealing with people in those life and death situations, our whole body is going to hardwire for survival, right? Yeah. Which means the amygdala hijack and no cognitive left and all that stuff. So the most essential thing we can offer somebody who's in that position is regulation through co-regulation by going, whoo, this is really intense. let's shift ourselves into an altered state, or let's be present with the intensity until it passes. And then we can do work.
Yes.
So is there anything you need to clear? I listened to your voice recording too,
Oh,
around the
previously.
intensity, the negativity. Do you want to vent for a minute? Or are we in a different space? See how it feels, and yes or no.
Well, so what Thea is referencing are voice messages from a related, but slightly different conversation, which is fine. Um,
Oh, I thought it was the one before. I listened to the voice message before you asked for this stream.
it was from some days ago, I think.
No, it was a recent one. So you iterated all this. I don't know how, but I got to hear all this
It
before
was,
I came on.
no, those were from January 4th.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
And
I
that's,
thought I was updating myself before the call. So I'm really glad to
well,
clear up the confusion and carry on. Thank you.
that does tell you something about where I'm at too, which is relevant. So I'll let everyone know a little bit more about that. So we've been discussing intuitive somatic economic in terms of the bridging that really must happen. Without this bridge, these people have no idea what's really happening at these intersections. And these people at these intersections are experiencing radical scarcity that prevents them from solving problems. And the crisis, it's not just a crisis over here we just dissociate from. The worse it gets, the more it compounds, it expands. And then it gets to the people over here who think that all they can do is protect themselves from it. They're not protecting themselves from it. We have to talk to each other, right?
Yeah.
And so I've been deep in navigating how do we organize network economics, all of the intuitive network, including my personal situation, challenges my family is dealing with, challenges that very close collaborators are dealing with. How do we transition from the economics of that intensity into the economics of stabilization and sustained stability? And I'll tell you what led to me calling Thea. I don't make phone calls, first of
Hang
all.
on. I want to pause because I
Oh,
want to
sure.
speak to what you just said.
Okay.
Thanks. And it's exactly what we're talking about the same thing in terms of um, embodying calm neutrality, right?
Mhm.
Like you can protect yourself without shutting down if you can embody calm neutrality. And then you can create the field that they can step into and leave the defensive survival orientation behind if it's within their capacity.
Right.
Right. And either way, whether it's in their capacity or not, you're having the same conversation from the same kind regard and neutral presence and embodied leadership, kind of. That you don't, if you can interrupt an escalation using your dominance, you can maintain balance and harmony. If you can find the way, if they're available to coming down right then. And like we're talking about the field behind what's happening, right? We're talking about the connected universe, that we're all flowing information back and forth. Verbal is like 5% of it, right? And we're all looking for the right words and we're not attending to the right state or
Right. Yeah.
so the more excited somebody else gets, the harder I have to ground.
Right.
And And also, and I'm really excited right now. And also, there's a great exercise actually that I teach people with reactive horses that I've embodied myself, which is that when your horse goes, you have to go, and when we feel in the uptick of the arousal around the conversation, we need to offer a
Yes. And I want to make sure that you're finished with where you were going with that before I jump.
that's it. This is coming out of like passive state into active state. Sentient communication is what Linda Kohanoff calls it.
Right. That itself is so important. So I'll come back to what I was saying a minute ago, right after I say this. People in serious survival situations are that continuously, and it's terrible. It's injury to the body. Um, and they often feel, why aren't we getting a response? But it's not just about whether there's a response or not to a particular thing. It's that the healthiest people, the most physiologically stable people, they they have a sense of it's necessary to respond to that toxic excitement, which is not, it's not necessarily the fault of anyone who's doing that, but
It's
it's
our biology.
cultural toxicity overwhelming the organism, and it's the response of the organism. But the response of a person who's really stable, really grounded, which is necessary in order to achieve the desired outcomes, that person or that group, they're going to respond to that cortisol intensity by going, we have to stabilize the energetic of what's happening. And so we talk about the intuitive energetic and how we can be with that with one another. So what I was saying before is that I don't I don't make phone calls. I don't do Zoom videos. I've had a series of re-injuries that have prevented me from doing this at all for a really long time. And what rose in me, what deepened in me as I was taking a look at some of the events in the network right now, some of the things going on with colleagues and people I care about, because of the work that Thea and I have been doing, my own physical response to those situations is very different. And that deepening, that grounding, that stabilization transfers immediately into, I'm just going to call her and see if she wants to do a live stream. Like
It
yesterday.
frees up life force
It
to
does.
lean in.
It does.
Yeah.
In those survival situations, the body becomes convinced that it could not at all be possible. And we have to do everything in our power to gradually shift and gradually shift. And I've had to do this personally.
We're
In
breaking freeze. We're
the,
breaking freeze.
yes. And to teach the body that, yes, this can be accessible even in the tiniest bit. And even the tiniest bit can make a big difference. And that increasingly is what facilitates more responsiveness from people one might be reaching out to help. Because if they have to ground too hard, they can't talk. They're grounding energetically to help to balance what's going on. But survivors groups really must, in order to achieve connectivity of this bridge, survivors groups must also be participating in the practice of how we ground and how we root
Well,
ourselves
and there's
the way we can.
two directions, right? Like we can't ground until we've released the excess charge.
Oh, and that's
sometimes,
tricky.
right? So
So
we need the negativity. We need the negativity to clear
right. Right.
before we can drop into another state. And now I invite you to bring your scenario before we run out of time.
Well, part of that is, I mean, it's this sort of is the scenario. Some of what's going on is it's one of the challenging things about it is that so for what I'm primarily looking at today are things that are happening in the world of colleagues, and there are a lot of different things. Some of them are visible in the network right now, and many of them are not. And part of the challenge is if I sit here and give you an explicit scenario, um, there are parts of that that my body cannot yet even detail accurately without losing the grounding. And so right now I feel like the grounding and the fact that we're beginning this conversation in public media, which really titillates me. Like I'm really excited that we're doing this. Um to start these subjects and wherever we find we can to continue. We have a lot of plans to continue in various ways. Um, we we're going to be saying a lot more over time about how we can bridge, how people in the worst of the worst of survival situations can actually start to achieve that responsiveness that is so needed. It's so scary to be going through that and to have silence on the other end, but
Yep.
it's energetic. It's
Yep.
the energetic and the somatic that we must really tune into in order to achieve that bridging. And there's a lot also for people in more stable, more privileged situations to be able to practice about how to protect themselves well without having to completely dissociate from something that is going to continue to get worse the longer it's not addressed. Um,
Right. And there's this feeling, sorry, there's this feeling that you need to go beyond your capacity in order to get that result. That's one of the like inversions we've been taught. So I want to really celebrate your awareness of woo, incapacity, woo, stepping outside capacity, right? And choosing within capacity again. I don't have to reveal anything I don't want to reveal in order to have a good outcome. It's primary that I maintain my ability to be present here. Right? So that's what you did. And I just want to acknowledge and celebrate it. And I also want to point to something you were talking earlier about the safe group and the unsafe group,
yeah.
and the safe group connecting with the unsafe group. And I was listening to that and going, yeah, it's like even the safe group isn't safe.
Exactly.
We're just better resourced,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
And we're all operating out of silos. I
Mhm.
was listening to Kasha talk about the when she offers a program and 1,000 people show up,
Mhm.
she has 30 people in support of her.
Sure.
She has the tech support, she has aftercare, she has all those things, right?
Mhm.
Set up before she goes into the experience so that she has the capacity to ground it because she set up a gorgeous container, right?
Yeah.
And we can do that to a certain extent for ourselves. And the real window is, can we develop a community that resources and supports each other while we're offering support to people who are feeling incredibly unsafe?
Yeah. And to
And
me,
how do we primary our ability to stay in presence on calls with them?
mhm. Yeah.
And address needs, right?
And
for address the need for attunement as primary.
knowing that we know how to do it, practicing enough that when something comes up, you know that you know how to do this. And most,
Like, I wish I could sit in witness of you dealing with some of these difficult situations in the moment where they're happening,
well, I would like,
right?
I'd like us to do that. I'd like us,
Yeah, and it's like, and that's where, yeah, and that's what I hear you saying. I hear you saying, I want to take this field that I feel with you into my economic situation, you know? And I'm like, okay, we're going because there's tons in there for me,
yeah,
you know?
that's all.
And but I think the expectation of safe is inaccurate. I think it's a state, not a it's like enlightenment, right? It's just something that it's a moment, like a relationship. I love Alison Armstrong's definition of a relationship. It's a series of moments of connecting.
Yeah. Yes.
It's a moment of connection, an
The
instant
word,
of relation.
the word safe can be really misleading. And a lot of the
Yeah.
reasons that people don't receive responses also is because they think they're reaching out to someone who is so much safer physically than they are. They think that that person is having an experience of physical safety. That is not necessarily the case, especially in the world we're in right now.
Yeah.
Usually it's not the case. So like safer, like can reach for food and it's there, can reach for solving a problem with a small amount of money and it's there. It's just, it's relative.
And it's also particular and helpful to define, right? And useful as a term to describe uh, a difference in contexts, right? Because I'm locating myself through my experience with you and recently in my life as, oh, I feel safe financially. I can imagine a future where Charlie retires and that's not true anymore. But right now, I feel safe. And you brought my attention to, hey, can I have some of that while you're there?
Sure.
And I'm like, yeah, because I need to experience it more myself because it's recent for me. I've been in lifelong scarcity and victim and reactive to authority, giving my power away to authority, right?
Yeah.
So it's been I've had times of severe lack. I've never lacked for food. So
But it's
um
still really real wherever it's
yeah.
at. It really
and
affects the body.
and it's so fun to feel myself not there now.
I am so glad for you to feel yourself not there now. And I'm very, very grateful the ways that you've really like you've demonstrated such skill and capacity for dialoguing and developing the building of bridges that we find most people not able to engage with. They just don't know how. And there are so many skills that you have. There's so much grounding that you have in the kinds of practices and awarenesses that make that possible. So that's really been an
Yeah.
amazing experience for me.
Yeah. And I've just clocked it's 10:45 and this has been rich and I want to take this into action. So I invite you, like, if you need, I think one of the things that helps me a lot when I'm going through something, and we do this back and forth tons, is that when I'm going through something, I want accompaniment and I want your attunement. And you offer it to me very generously because you're incredibly attracted, like I am, right? So I want to offer you in reply if there's ever a situation where you're shaken after, and you want to debrief with someone, and you think that person's me, please try me in that moment.
I will. Thank you.
And I think that if we could do this for each other, that we could start creating that community of support so that we're not facing that level of unsafety alone. We can go in going, okay, I'm going to set up a call with Thea for when I get out, and I'm going to debrief with her over tea, or whatever, that we're looking for our own aftercare when we're going in from each other.
I am feeling the presencing and unfolding of more and more of this. And I'm very grateful for getting to do this with you. Thank you.
Me too. Me too. And I'm grateful for all the places where I'm able to have my needs met with you over Telegram in incredibly empowering and restorative, loving, and there's just this thrill, like a best buddy thrill.
That makes me so happy. It's really powerful being able to communicate there. So thank you for being there. And I mean, I guess we wrap up now, but we're gonna find our way here again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Served me super well. Served me super well. Couldn't have done anything better with my time.
I will bring links here so that people can find out more about our conversations together, and we will return sometime soon. Wishing everyone a very wonderful, grounded, stabilizing day.